fact, the paragraph begins with this at once raises the question of the nature of mind. In other words, he is saying that what are the instruments of knowledge you are using? It depends on that. There is you, the knower, who wants to know, and there is the external physical world, which is real. It is not unreal at all. It is how you are seeing. That is the problem. As I said, there are two words, epistemology and ontology. The epistemology, what are the instruments of knowledge that you are using to get your knowledge? Depending on that, you will get your knowledge. If you are using it, as I keep saying, if I use a microscope, I'll know the reality of the at the cellular structure. If I am using a telescope, a powerful telescope, I will know what the stellar existences, the stars and the planets out there. I can see them. So it depends on what you are seeing and how you are using your instruments of knowledge. So what is being seen is the reality. But what you are picturing to yourself through your instruments of knowledge, that is the problem. So the problem can be solved by using better and better instruments. The first instruments that we have are the senses. The second instruments are the subtle senses. Then we have intuition, which is also an instrument of knowledge. And finally, sight. Sight also is an instrument of knowledge. Subtle sight. Subtle hearing also. Okay. Shruti, drishti, these are also instruments of knowledge. Discrimination and intuition. These are all the four powers of the supermind, which can be experienced even at the lower levels. Okay. In fact, if you remember, our famous mathematician Ramanujan was not a spiritual man, but he was getting intuitions and he was receiving them. So it's possible to receive these things even at a lower level. So this is what he is discussing. So now we read the what it receives towards the end of the para.
Hello.
Yeah, tell me.
You know, if Ramanujan was not a spiritual man, then how come he could suddenly go to the intuitive mind?
He didn't go to the intuitive mind.
It came to him.
No. He is receiving intuitions into the mind. Yasmin, you are also receiving, but you are not conscious that it is coming from there. And when it comes into the, Surendra described this very interestingly. The intuitions are coming always from on top into everybody. But because of the density and the darkness of our consciousness, we are not receiving them. And even if we receive them, they get distorted. Okay. If a white light is coming, it becomes murky and smoky. So we think it's a thought. Okay. Then from inside also your psychic is sending you intimations, sending you the realities, but you're not receiving it because it has come through three levels: the mind level, the vital level, and the body level. So by the time it comes to you, it becomes just something you think it's a very ordinary thing, and it has become ordinary also. But the more pure you are, the intuitions can come through. So obviously, in this case, he is not at an intuitive level. He is receiving them from the top. In one passage in Srimdu's Life Divine, he explains how this happens. The light is coming. Suppose you are shining a light onto the sea. Okay, the more it goes deeper and deeper, it starts disappearing. It starts becoming more and less intense, less and less intense, until finally, maybe 100 meters below the light, you don't see the light up. Okay, so he was capable of receiving the light. That's the thing. And that also, he was capable of receiving the light only in his field. That's another important thing you must remember. In the mathematical field, he was developed. So he was receiving intuitions from there. But if you ask him for spiritual truths, he may not have. Or scientific truths, he may not have. But he was receiving those in which he was capable of receiving. He was not at his level. You can ask me, how do I know that? But I am only answering the theoretical aspect. I don't know whether he was at an intuitive level or not. But even if he was not, he can receive. That's the whole point.
So, Rangada, whenever I think in that way that whenever we say that it is my intelligence, it is I have done it. This is all actually done by the intuitions received from the divine. But where we take the credit of it, each and every time when we have a success.
Yeah, that is because of the ego. Okay, is the ego?
No, but this is also intuition that comes from the divine, and we take it as our success that I have done. I have done.
But Shilpa, remember that when the intuition is coming, it is not coming through pure. It is getting clouded when it comes down into your. As I gave you the image of the sea, na? The deeper you go, it becomes murkier and murkier. Our head is the clearest part. When it comes down into the below the throat and the heart level, it becomes murkier. When it goes down even into the navel level, it becomes even more dark. So the light and the intuition gets distorted. And you think it's just a thought. But if you are pure, you will receive the. But even if you are pure, as you said just now, you will think that you are getting the truth and you take credit for it. That's the function of the ego. That's right. And when you have got rid of your ego and your consciousness is outside the body, mind, life in the self, then you realize that you are doing nothing at all. In universal nature, the superconscious, the intraconscious, and the subconscious, which is doing all the work. And you are only at the receiving end. You are a passive radio, and you are receiving only intimations from the broadcasting station, which is the divine. Okay, so that's it. So shall we start reading?
Yes.
We have read it, so I'm going to read each sentence. Okay? So, what it receives, he's talking of the mind, because you remember, if you see, if you go to the beginning of the para, he's talking of the mind, nature of the mind. This at once raises the question of the nature of mind. He is talking here, I am talking of instruments to make you understand, but the mind is the instrument of knowledge at our level. So he's saying that. We have to examine the nature of the mind, what it is. It creates illusions, it creates ignorance. That's all. I'm reading each sentence. What it receives, the mind, it receives are truths, essential, possible, and actual. You can see now the gradation. So, there is a gradation. At the highest level, they are essential truths, pure truths at the highest level. When they come down, they become a little murkier, and also the one is becoming the many. Remember, the one is becoming the many. So what is essential, what has to become, when it comes down, it becomes possible in time, but later in time. Okay, so that is the reason why Sri Aurobindo could not say when India will be free. But that essential truth that India will be free is the essential truth. But when it comes down, how will it happen and when will it happen, he could not say. Then again he said that the partition must and will go because it is necessary for India's greatness. And there also he did not give the time limit. And now we see 75 years have gone by, but you can see the beginnings of the breakup of Pakistan. You can see the beginnings. They are in great trouble, and all the different states, Punjab, Balochistan, and Sindh, are all fighting to become separate. So it has taken 75 years, and it will take another 2-3 years more for that to happen. But he is giving the essential truth. Partition will and must disappear. But when it comes down, when will it disappear? Will it disappear in 1970, 1975, 1980, 2000 or 2025? We don't know because it will become possible. Then actually when it becomes the reality, it becomes the actual. Now it is achieved. That essential truth, it came down from the highest level and now it has become actual. So this is what he is saying. Huh? You can also think of it in another way. I gave you the example of Sri Aurobindo forecast of the partition of India and also the freedom of India, the liberation of India. But you can also think of other things also. Think of the, the Leonardo da Vinci's idea that he will create an aeroplane, okay, which is heavier than an air machine, but it will fly. So it took 400 years to become a possibility. But now, there is another interesting thing. So we are saying essential. Essential, yes, man will be able to make a machine heavier than air. That's an essential truth. But when it comes down here, first they tried the Zeppelins. You know the Zeppelin, huh? It is a huge balloon filled with hydrogen so that it would become light. And it was a disaster. You have heard of that, no? The Zeppelin burst into flames and all the people underneath there, they all died. So they stopped this Zeppelin thing. That was one possibility. So then they tried other things. And today what do we see? We see that there are all sorts of other possibilities. What about drones? Drones are the most fantastic thing. So different types of, now they are talking also of flying cars. Okay, so these are the possibilities. And then they become actualities. So the gradation is very clear. There are essential truths on top, but by the time they come down into the physical world, they have to pass through many, many possibilities, and finally it comes down to actual. Right? So you have to picture to yourself what you mean by these words. Essential truth, possible truths, actual truths. It starts from the realized actualities of the physical universe, and it brings out from them in its subjective action the unrealized possibilities which they contain or suggest, or to which it can arrive by proceeding from them as a starting point. This sentence is exactly what we discussed just now. He's saying, and you start from physical facts. We, in 1910, I think it was, the Wright brothers, Wilbur Wright and Orville Wright, they made an aeroplane fly for 100 meters. And then that started the age of aviation in the world. But then later on, there are all sorts of different variations. Jets came into the picture, then fighter jets, huge passenger airlines, and now we have drones. So these are the the possibility of aviation is there in the physical world, you are starting from the physical, and then you think of other possibilities. That's what he's saying. Look at the sentence carefully, you'll see that. It starts from the realized actualities of the physical, the invention of the aeroplane, for instance, and brings out from them in its subjective action, you are thinking about them in your mind, the unrealized possibility. The unrealized possibility at that time in 1910 was the jets and the passenger aeroplanes and the drones, which they contain or suggest, or to which it can arrive by proceeding from them as a starting point. So in the example given, very clearly you can understand what he's saying. It selects some out of these possibilities for a subjective action and plays with imagined or inwardly constructed forms of them. So the mind starts making different possibilities out of that which is already realized. It chooses others for objectivization. Objectivization, making real in the physical world. Objectivizing. Your idea gets objectivized and attempts to realize them. But it receives inspirations also from above and within. So above is the vertical, it comes from the spiritual planes of consciousness. And you can receive inspirations from within also, from your psychic being, from your intraconscious, from invisible sources, and not only from the impacts of the visible cosmic phenomena. So the world can urge you to invent things from the physical world. You see an insect flying, and you get the idea that, oh, if an insect can fly, so can I. And then you extend that. But you are also, there are three sources of inspiration. Spiritual planes, the intraconscious, the psychic plane that is giving you, and also the physical world. All these are giving you ideas to start, and these things are coming to you all the time from everywhere else. This is what Shanti is saying. It receives inspirations also from above and within, very clear. Above is the spiritual planes and within is the psychic. From not only psychic but from the intraconscious. It can come from the inner mind, inner vital, and even the inner physical. It can come from there. From invisible sources, and not only from the impacts of the visible cosmic phenomenon, It sees truths other than those suggested by the actual physicality around it. And here too, it plays subjectively with transmitted or constructed forms of these truths, or it selects for objectivization, attempts to realize. Okay? So, your mind is busy building on the actualities that are there. That's why you see all these things. Clear, na? Shall we go to the next para? So, our mind. So, who will read?
My book has not yet come.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't have book. Anybody else? Others can read.
Okay. Our mind is an observer. What happened? Nobody is reading?
I don't have book. My book will come today evening.
Hello.
Yes, Yasmin.
If nobody is reading, then I will read.
Go ahead. Our mind.
Our mind is an observer and user of actualities, a diviner or recipient of truths not yet known or actualized, a dealer in possibilities that mediate between the truth and actuality. But it has not the omniscience of an infinite consciousness. It is limited in knowledge and has to be supplement its restricted knowledge by imagination and discovery. It does not, like the infinite consciousness, manifest the known. It has to discover the unknown. It seizes the possibilities of the infinite, not as results or variation of forms of a latent truth, but as constructions or creations, figments of its own boundless imagination. It has not the omnipotence of an infinite conscious energy. It can only realize or actualize what the cosmic energy will accept from it, or what it has the strength to impose or introduce into the sum of things, because the secret divinity, superconscient or subliminal, which uses it, intends that should be expressed in nature. Its limitations of knowledge constitute by incompleteness, but also by openness to error and ignorance. In dealing with actualities, it may misobserve, misuse, miscreate. In dealing with possibilities, it may miscompose, miscombine, misapply, misplace. In its dealings with truth revealed to it, it may deform, misrepresent, disharmonize. It may also make constructions of its own, which have no correspondence with the things of actual existence, no potentiality of realization, no support from the truth behind it. But still, these constructions start from an illegitimate extension of actualities, catch at unpermitted possibilities, or turn truths to an application which is not applicable. Mind creates, but it is not an original creator, not omniscient or omnipotent, not even as always efficient demiurge. Maya, the elusive power. On the contrary, must be an original creator, for it creates all things out of nothing, unless we suppose that it creates out of the substance of the reality. But then, the things it creates must be in some way real. It has a perfect knowledge of what it wishes to create, a perfect power to create whatever it chooses, omniscient and omnipotent, though only over its own illusions, harmonizing them and linking them together with a magical sureness and sovereign energy, absolute effective in imposing its own formations of figments passed off as truths, possibilities, actualities on the creature intelligence.
Okay. Quite a big para, one page. We'll look at it in about 15 minutes. So, the beginning of the paragraph. So he is discussing the mind, he is the instruments. Now he is going further into what the mind is. It can make mistakes, it can make wrong judgments, but it can also partially make the right judgments. That's what his whole paragraph is telling you. And we look at the word that he is using. Our mind, that means the normal human mind. And we can take our normal human mind is sometimes very, very dull and stupid, but it can be, on average, it is practical. And sometimes at the very intelligent level, it can be a very good instrument relatively. Okay? So our mind is an observer. It observes and it also uses actualities. That is what science is all about. Science is using the actualities and building further on them. Okay, that's the reason. It uses actualities and builds further on them. It observes first. It's very interesting that science is using actually things which it observes in the physical world. For instance, okay, when it is seeing a lizard walking or rather moving on the wall, it gets the idea of this suction and which can go like that. It can walk vertically also. Then that is how the, nowadays you don't have buttons, you have Velcro. No? So the Velcro was invented actually by looking at the animal world. It's very interesting because that is exactly how it works. The feet, the legs, or rather if you want, the padding of the legs of the lizard acts like a Velcro. Okay. So that's what Sundar is saying here. I am giving only examples. Okay. Our mind is an observer. First it observes. How is that spider walking on the wall vertically up? And then it finds out that there is this system of Velcro-like thing on its legs. So when they examine that carefully and observe it, now they can copy it in nature. Okay, they have the same thing. It sticks.
Excuse me.
Yes, tell me.
You know, suction on a lizard's feet pad is different from Velcro.
Yes, you are right.
Velcro is two different things, and Velcro was invented because there was a plant which had something like spikes, and there was a cloth which got stuck to it.
Okay.
And that is how they realized how one side of Velcro is very rough and the other side has these little spikes, and these spikes go into that. So Velcro does not have suction in it.
It's okay, but I may not be right in the details, but when I am only interpreting what Sindhu is saying, observer of actuality and user of actualities. I'm just interpreting that.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, not at all, not at all. But it is also true, I know, that they have also observed the phenomena of the lizard, okay? So that the leg that it uses, that principle also is used in many places, which you are right.
Yes, that is very true.
Yeah. So it is the exact mechanism. I may often be wrong because I am also giving sometimes images from the medicine world of medicine. I may be wrong because both of you are doctors and you may be, but I am giving you the essential thing. I am interpreting what Sundar is saying. So when you observe and use the actualities, you see the things and then you know that this can be done. Okay? That's the interesting part. So a diviner or recipient of truths not yet known or actualized. Okay? A dealer in possibility. I know, for instance, what I said, that Velcro was invented by looking at nature. It was not invented without looking at nature. So that's why Sridhar is saying observer and user of actualities. See how accurate he is. That's why I gave the example. Okay. So, the actual thing, what Velcro was invented from, definitely I may have given a wrong starting point. Okay. But the interpretation given is not wrong. Okay. A diviner or recipient of truth, which one? The mind. Our mind is a diviner. By the way, what is a diviner? He doesn't mean diviner. Here it means guessing. It guesses at truth. Okay, like in French, you have the word deviner. Okay, so that's why there is a difference between divination and divinization. Divinization means making divine, but divination means a rough idea, a vague idea, and a guesswork. So here he is using it in that sense. A diviner of truths, a guessing of truths, a tatonma, if you want. Tatonma is a feeling and understanding things in a little vague way. It receives truths and also can guess at truths. Not yet known or actualized, a dealer in possibilities that mediate between truth and actuality. That's mind. The mind is between the truth and the actuality. The actuality is the something in nature, and the truth is up there, and so the mind invents and gets the two together, observes and uses it. But it has not the omniscience of an infinite consciousness. In other words, it can observe the actuality, but it cannot see the absolute truth. It has not the omniscience of an infinite consciousness. It is limited in knowledge and has to supplement its restricted knowledge by imagination and discovery. Imagination was when he invented the drone from the aeroplane, and discovery is the Velcro. Okay? Very clearly, he is making a distinction between the two. First, you imagine the truth and get something actual, and you can discover something also and make something out of it. It does not, like the infinite consciousness, manifest the known. It has to discover the unknown. That's the nature of the mind. What has not yet been done in the physical world, it has to discover and do it. It seizes the possibilities of the infinite, not as results or variations of forms of a latent truth, but as constructions or creations, figments of its own boundless imagination. So, the Velcro does not exist in the universe, but man has invented that. That's what Sridhar is pointing out here. Okay? But as constructions or creations, figments of its own boundless imagination. It's a figment first, but it becomes a reality later on. It has not the omnipotence. Neither it has got infinite consciousness, nor does it have the omnipotence of an infinite conscious energy. It can only realize or actualize what the cosmic energy will accept from it, or what it has a strength to impose or introduce into the sum of things, because the secret divinity, superconscient or subliminal, which uses it, intends that it should be expressed in nature. This is where he is putting it in very philosophical language, but what he's saying in basically is that you can invent something, you can think of something, but the world conditions have to be ready for it. Again, we can go back to the idea of the aeroplane, which was 400 years earlier. The mind of man was able to think about it, but the world conditions were not ready. Nature was not yet ready to express it. So it is using that word, see, which it uses intents that should be expressed by nature. So at that time, 400 years ago, nature was not ready to express the idea of the aeroplane. Okay? But then later on, we discovered the mind of man, discovered the laws of aviation, the laws of the flight, and also the materials. We invented light materials, and it became possible. Then nature is now ready to express what you want to invent. Okay? That's what he's saying. In other words, to put it, nature has to be ready to accept what you want to do. The world condition must be ready. That's what he's saying. Its limitation in knowledge, the limitation of knowledge in the mind, constitutes by incompleteness, but also by openness to error. Not only the incomplete, but also error, okay, and ignorance. Now he is explaining what he means by ignorance and error. Okay. In dealing with actualities, it may misobserve, number one, misuse, number two, miscreate, number three. So all these we have to distinguish between each word what is saying. Misobserve, very clear. I am seeing something, but I am not seeing the reality. Misuse, I have seen the reality, but I am not using it in the correct way. Okay. So, miscreate. Okay. And this also is very interesting. Misobserve, misuse, and miscreate. Okay. So think of the invention of the electric bulb. So he is saying that a firefly is emitting light. Okay. Suppose you see that. You observe, but you are misusing the materials. You are using the wrong filament, and therefore the light is not coming. And you may miscreate also. You are going on making mistakes, finally you get it right. So you may misobserve, the observation itself may be wrong, and misusing may be wrong. You are using the wrong materials, and you may also miscreate, you may miscreate something else which is defective. Okay? In dealing with possibilities, now again, it may miscompose. It may combine different things. Miscompose, miscombine, misapply, misplace. So it's a very interesting thing. You can look at each word and understand what he is saying. This is an interesting exercise, nothing to do with reading of the Life Divine, but it will sharpen your language. Okay, miscompose. When you are composing something, that means you are inventing something, you may not be doing the right thing. Okay. Miscombine, take two elements and combine them, but they are not combinable, but you are miscombining them. Therefore, you will fail. Or misapply. The truth that is there, you are misapplying the truth. Or you may misplace. Put it in a context where it has no place. Okay? So, these are the different words. Think about it, very interesting. In its dealings with truths revealed to it, it may deform. It may not understand correctly and may completely deform the idea, misrepresent, disharmonize. All these things the mind can do, which is because it is subject to error and ignorance. It may also make constructions of its own, which have no correspondence with the things of actual existence. No potentiality of realization, that also is possible. No support from the truth behind them. Only when there is support from the truth behind them, you will be able to invent what is possible, what nature is going to allow you. But still, these constructions start from an illegitimate extension of actualities, catch at unpermitted possibilities, or turn truths to an application which is not applicable. All these type of mistakes the human mind can make, and he is making also all the time. They start from an illegitimate extension of actuality, catch at unpermitted possibilities, or turn truths to an application which is not applicable. Mind creates, but it is not an original creator. The original creator is the supermind, because it creates real forms. But the mind is a secondary creator. As we have discussed many times, the mind is the one that has created the mobile, it has created the computer, okay? So it has created the car, so it can create, but it is using materials which already exist. That's why it's a secondary creator. Not omniscient or omnipotent. not even an always efficient demiurge. Here, it can create altogether wrong things also. That's what it is. Maya, the elusive power, on the contrary, must be an original creator. Maya is the power of the divine to create forms, original creator. It's a power of the supermind, for it creates all things out of nothing, unless we suppose that it creates out of the substance of the reality. So when you say that it is creating out of nothing, you are a Buddhist and a Mayavadi. But when you say that it is creating out of the substance of the reality, then you are the Advaitin. But then the things it creates must be in some way real. So if you are thinking that it is creating out of the substance of reality, what it is creating is real. It has a perfect knowledge of what it wishes to create, a perfect power to create whatever it chooses. It has got gold in its as essence, and from the gold it creates all the ornaments that it wants to create. So that is the gold is the substance of the reality. And all the forms that you see in the physical world are the ornaments that it creates. The ornaments are not real. They can be changed easily. If I have a necklace, I can melt it down into gold and change it to something else. So it's not the reality, it's a semi-reality. Okay? It is a perfect knowledge of what it wants to wish to create, a perfect power to create whatever it chooses. Omniscient and omnipotent, though only over its own illusions, harmonizing them, linking them together with a magical sureness and sovereign energy, absolutely effective in imposing its own formations or figments, passed off as truths, possibilities, actualities on the creature intelligence. So again, gradations he has given. First of all, truths, then possibilities. As it comes down, different possibilities come down for this truth. Finally, it becomes an actuality on the creature intelligence. Okay, it's 8:34. We got only 1 minute, so we have completed 2 paras today. We don't have time to read the next one. Our mind works best, so that we'll take up next time. Okay. So Suki, page 451. And
Yes.
yeah, but our mind will read from there next time. Okay.
Yes.
So
Merci beaucoup.
okay, au revoir.
Thank you, Ramagada.
I hope the Mayavada theory is becoming clearer and clearer, na? I hope so.
Yes.
Okay. So, au revoir all of you. Have a nice day.